What if someone you trusted, implicitly, someone you welcomed into the most intimate corners of your life, was secretly recording every single conversation? What if every word you whispered in confidence, every strategy discussed behind closed doors, every private joke or heated argument had a hidden witness? Imagine that someone, under the guise of friendship or partnership, was capturing it all, not for memory, not for sharing with friends, but for leverage, for control, for power. That, according to Prince William, is exactly what Meghan Markle allegedly did inside the royal family. Hidden devices, secret recordings, conversations meant to remain private. And now, for the first time, William has spoken, revealing a level of betrayal that could shake the monarchy to its very core. But before we continue, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The royal family is often seen as untouchable, as a world apart where decorum and duty mask the human dramas that unfold within. But behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, Kensington, and Sandringham, the stakes are just as high and just as personal as any thriller you've ever seen on screen. And according to William, what has been unfolding is not fiction. He claims that Meghan Markle, under the radar, used hidden recording devices during meetings, events, and private conversations. Devices so discreet they could easily go unnoticed. Conversations that were never meant to leave the room were, allegedly, captured and stored, raising questions not only about trust, but also about legality, privacy, and the very fabric of family loyalty. Now, pause for a moment and think. If this is true, what does it say about the inner workings of one of the most scrutinized families in the world? What does it mean for Harry, for Charles, for Catherine? How could such alleged surveillance exist in a space where every move is already under a microscope, where media, paparazzi, and global attention are constants? It's a paradox, isn't it? A family living under constant watch, yet one member allegedly managing to secretly watch others. And the implications stretch far beyond personal betrayal. According to legal experts, recording private conversations without consent is a serious violation of UK privacy laws. We're talking about rules that are in place to protect personal safety, confidentiality, and trust. Rules that the most powerful family in the country is now reportedly entangled in. But what makes this revelation even more explosive is not just the act itself, it's the timing, the context, and the consequences. William reportedly didn't make these claims lightly or without consideration. Sources close to the palace suggest that for years, concerns had been mounting, whispers of unusual behaviors, odd timing of meetings, and a level of secrecy that seemed out of place even for a family accustomed to protocol. And yet, nothing concrete surfaced until now. Until William, apparently reaching a breaking point, decided that the truth needed to be told. Not through leaks, not through gossip, but through a calculated public disclosure meant to expose behaviors that could no longer remain in the shadows. Imagine sitting in a room where your words are meant to be private. Imagine speaking freely, trusting that the circle you are in respects confidentiality, only to find out later that every statement, every nuance, was captured. The emotional betrayal is staggering. Families fight over inheritance, over opinions, over misunderstandings, but spying on one another? That strikes at the very core of trust. According to those close to William, this isn't a matter of gossip or exaggeration. It's a matter of principle. Privacy in the royal family is not just etiquette, it is protection. For the monarch, for heirs, for the future of the institution itself. And the allegation that Meghan crossed this boundary isn't just scandalous, it's unprecedented. Now, consider the possible evidence. While William hasn't released recordings publicly, insiders claim that there are devices strategically placed, likely disguised as everyday items. The very idea is cinematic. Microphones hidden in pens, cameras in lamps, devices that record without detection. It's a scenario more fitting for a spy thriller than the family drama of the Windsor dynasty. And yet, William's insistence, corroborated by palace aides, points to a reality that's far more chilling precisely because it's plausible. And then there's the human element. How do you process betrayal from someone you considered family? Harry, for example, has had a complex, deeply personal relationship with Meghan, one that has been shaped by love, loyalty, and public pressure. But if William's claims are accurate, the ramifications extend to him as well. Every private conversation between the brothers, every strategic discussion about the family's public image could have been compromised. And for the rest of the family, the Queen, the courtiers, the staff who operate under strict confidentiality, the breach is not just a violation, it's a wake-up call that the walls they've trusted might not be as secure as they believed. But let's pause here. You might be asking, Why now? Why would William come forward at this precise moment? Why make such serious claims public, risking media frenzy and familial discord? According to insiders, timing is everything. The palace has been navigating ongoing tensions, public scrutiny of Harry and Meghan, and the constant challenge of maintaining dignity in the face of relentless media attention. By revealing these alleged secret recordings now, William is, in essence, taking control of the narrative. He's drawing a line, signaling that certain boundaries cannot be crossed without consequence. It's also worth noting the broader implications. The monarchy, while symbolic in many ways, operates within legal and societal frameworks. Secretly recording conversations without consent is not merely a breach of etiquette, it is a legal violation. If proven, it could result in criminal investigations, civil lawsuits, and a reputational disaster unlike anything the modern royal family has faced. And while we cannot speculate on legal outcomes at this stage, the very suggestion that such behavior may have occurred is enough to ignite public debate, media scrutiny, and an intense court of opinion both in the UK and globally. The emotional intensity of this revelation cannot be overstated. For those inside the palace, for those who have dedicated their lives to service, for those who believed in the sanctity of family trust, it is a moment of reckoning. Every whispered strategy, every private counsel, every family discussion could now be tainted by the possibility of being recorded. And for the audience watching from the outside, it is a rare glimpse into the hidden vulnerabilities of a family often thought untouchable. And yet, this is just the beginning. According to William, the recordings were not haphazard. They were systematic, calculated. There is an implication, sources say, that they were used not merely for personal record-keeping, but potentially for influence, leverage, or control within the family structure. This introduces a layer of complexity that transforms what might have seemed like a scandalous anecdote into a deeply strategic, almost Machiavellian narrative unfolding in real time. Now, as you absorb this, ask yourself, if true, what does it mean for trust in relationships? For loyalty within families? For the idea that some conversations are sacred and untouchable? And perhaps most importantly, what does it mean for the monarchy itself? William's revelation is not just a family matter, it is a societal matter. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about privacy, power, and ethics within institutions that are meant to embody stability, integrity, and continuity. And here's where the story takes its first major turn. William has not simply made allegations, he has hinted at concrete proof, devices, and events that will be unpacked in the chapters to come. Sources close to him describe a dossier of evidence, meticulously gathered, that chronicles what he alleges were repeated incursions into private family moments. The mere existence of such a dossier raises questions. How extensive were these recordings? Were sensitive discussions about international diplomacy, royal finances, or private family health caught on tape? And most critically, what might happen if this information falls into the wrong hands? But as shocking as all this is, it sets the stage for what comes next. The introduction only scratches the surface of a drama that is equal parts betrayal, strategy, and legal intrigue. In the chapters that follow, we will explore the alleged recordings in detail, examine the reactions within the palace, analyze the legal ramifications, and uncover the human consequences of a trust so profoundly violated. And just when you think you've grasped the full impact, William's revelations promise twists that no one could have anticipated, moments that will challenge everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and the dynamics of the royal family. Because what William is claiming goes beyond gossip, beyond rumor. It is a narrative of secrecy, surveillance, and strategic revelation that could redefine the very notion of privacy in one of the most famous families on Earth. The stakes are immense. The implications profound. And as the story unfolds, one question remains. How deep does this alleged surveillance go? And what will it cost the royal family when the truth comes fully to light? Trust is fragile, and in the royal family, it is sacred. Every word spoken behind palace doors, every whispered plan or quiet joke is meant to stay private. For centuries, the Windsor family has operated on an unspoken code: loyalty, discretion, and honor, above all. But according to Prince William, that code was allegedly broken in a way that no one anticipated. The trust that held the family together, the invisible glue binding them through crises and triumphs, was shattered by someone they thought they could rely on. Imagine this, a room full of the family's closest advisors, strategists, and relatives, discussions about official engagements, sensitive political matters, even deeply personal family issues. Everything is conducted with the understanding that these conversations are confidential. And yet what William claims is that every word, every nuance, was potentially being recorded by Meghan Markle, hidden devices capturing the private moments the family never intended to see the light of day. To understand the gravity of this claim, consider what trust really means in the context of royalty. The monarchy is not just a family, it is an institution. Every action, every decision, every misstep has consequences far beyond personal feelings. Reputation, tradition, diplomacy, and public perception are constantly at stake. Inside this rarefied world, privacy is the currency of survival. And when that privacy is violated, the consequences ripple through not just family life, but national and international affairs. According to sources close to William, the first signs that something was amiss were subtle. Odd questions, knowledge of discussions that were meant to be private, and inconsistencies in how information appeared outside the family circle. On their own, these incidents might have been dismissed. But when patterns emerged, patterns suggesting systematic recording, it became impossible to ignore. William reportedly observed, over months, what he describes as deliberate acts of surveillance, conducted with the precision of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The alleged recordings weren't just casual notes or memories captured on a personal device. William claims that they were covert, hidden, and constant. Imagine microphones hidden in everyday objects, pens, vases, cameras so small they could sit unnoticed in corners. Conversations meant to remain sacred were allegedly being logged, potentially stored, and possibly used to gain leverage. And the implications are staggering. Because in a family where trust is everything, the idea that your words could be secretly monitored changes every interaction. It's the difference between speaking freely and speaking with a constant sense of vulnerability. The emotional impact on William is palpable. Sources describe him as stunned, hurt, and deeply betrayed. This isn't just a matter of protocol or legal violations. It's a personal affront. To have someone infiltrate your private moments, your private discussions, your strategy sessions, is to have the very essence of your integrity questioned. William, who has long carried the weight of royal responsibility, now faced an additional burden, navigating the complex emotions of betrayal while preserving the image and stability of the family for the public eye. And it wasn't only William who was affected. Consider Harry, Meghan's husband, whose relationship with his brother has been complicated by years of tension, media scrutiny, and differing visions of public life. If William's claims are accurate, then Harry's private conversations, his perspectives, and his vulnerabilities may have been caught on tape. The idea that the man you trust most could be unintentionally, or intentionally, exposed through recordings is more than unsettling. The alleged breach of trust didn't stop at family interactions. According to insiders, private advisors, personal assistants, and palace staff became part of a web of observation they never signed up for. In a household where confidentiality is sacred, the knowledge that someone might be recording conversations introduces fear, suspicion, and tension. Staff reportedly became cautious about what they said, wary of being inadvertently captured in a device. It is a psychological weight, invisible but ever present, altering behavior and undermining relationships. William's alleged discovery of these recordings prompted a flurry of internal deliberation. What do you do when the betrayal comes from within? When the person you have welcomed into your family home, trusted with your confidences, might be listening in on your private thoughts, the palace reportedly consulted legal experts, advisors, and trusted aides, weighing the potential fallout of public disclosure versus quiet resolution. And the decision to go public, to reveal the alleged secret recordings, was not taken lightly. It was a move calculated to assert control, to demand accountability, and to protect the institution from further compromise. But let's be clear, this is not just a story about devices or espionage. It is a story about human relationships and the fragility of trust. Imagine sharing a deeply personal moment with someone, only to later learn that it may have been captured without your consent. The emotional breach is almost impossible to quantify. William, in stepping forward, has highlighted a question that resonates beyond the royal family. How do we safeguard our privacy, our confidence, and our sense of security in relationships, even with those we love and trust most? The alleged recordings also underscore the complex nature of Meghan's integration into the royal family. For months and years, she was navigating an environment steeped in tradition, protocol, and scrutiny. William's claims suggest that rather than fully embracing the existing trust structures, she allegedly introduced an element of surveillance, an act that could be interpreted as both strategic and manipulative. Was it fear of exclusion? Was it desire for influence? Or was it something else entirely? These are questions that insiders say have haunted the family and fueled speculation for years. And then there's the legal dimension. In the UK, secretly recording private conversations without consent can be considered a violation of privacy laws. While palace matters are often shielded from public scrutiny, the allegation raises the specter of legal repercussions, adding another layer of gravity. William, by speaking out, is not merely airing grievances. He is signaling that boundaries were allegedly crossed in ways that could have serious legal and ethical consequences. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there is also a psychological narrative to consider. The act of alleged recording is, at its core, an act of mistrust. It communicates suspicion, control, and a desire to gather power through information. In a family where loyalty is expected and privacy is assumed, such behavior can erode relationships at a foundational level. William's revelations suggest that this erosion was not gradual or accidental. It was deliberate, calculated, and far-reaching. As the public begins to grapple with these claims, the palace reportedly braces for a storm. Media outlets are poised to analyze every nuance, every implication, and every potential consequence. Public opinion is being shaped in real time, with speculation about motives, evidence, and fallout spreading faster than any official statement could contain. And yet, the most significant consequences remain behind the palace walls, in conversations and relationships that have been forever altered. The betrayal of trust, as alleged by William, is not a simple matter of intrigue. It is a profound emotional violation. To have someone, under the guise of love or alliance, secretly monitor your words, your reactions, your private moments, is to experience an intimacy turned on its head. The very act of speaking becomes dangerous. The act of trusting becomes perilous. It is a scenario that forces every member of the family to reconsider who they can confide in, who they can rely on, and how they navigate interactions in an environment where secrecy and surveillance are intertwined. And yet, despite the gravity of these claims, there is a flicker of hope for resolution, or at least clarity. William's decision to speak out publicly, to shed light on what he alleges, is itself a call to accountability. It is a demand that boundaries be respected, that trust be restored, and that actions have consequences. For the family, it may be a step toward rebuilding integrity. For the public, it is an unprecedented glimpse into the vulnerabilities of one of the world's most scrutinized households. But the story does not end here. Alleged recordings are only the beginning. According to insiders, there are layers of strategy, psychological manipulation, and calculated influence that extend far beyond the devices themselves. The evidence William hints at is said to reveal not just breaches of privacy, but patterns of behavior, moments of control, and instances where confidential discussions were potentially leveraged for personal gain. And as the chapters ahead will show, these revelations will unfold in ways that no one, not even the royal family, could have predicted. Because trust, once shattered, has consequences. Relationships are tested, alliances are questioned, and reputations are at stake. And for William, for Harry, and for the rest of the family, the stakes could not be higher. The alleged recordings may be hidden, but their impact is far-reaching. The walls of the palace, the very spaces thought to be safe, now carry the weight of suspicion. And as we delve deeper into this story, one question looms larger than all others. How far did this alleged surveillance go, and what will it take to restore the trust that has been broken? William has always been measured, deliberate, and cautious. Every word he speaks carries weight, not just because he is a prince, but because he is the heir to a legacy that spans centuries. When he finally decided to speak, when he chose to reveal what he alleges about Meghan Markle and the secret recordings, it wasn't impulsive. It was the result of years of observation, quiet contemplation, and an accumulation of incidents that, taken together, could no longer be ignored. And the revelation he delivered was nothing short of explosive. Imagine the scene. A quiet, formal meeting meant to discuss family matters in confidence. Every eye is attentive, every voice calm. And yet, according to William, something unseen was recording. Something hidden was capturing every word. He claims that Meghan, under the guise of normalcy, allegedly used small concealed devices to document private conversations. Not just one conversation, he insists, but a systematic pattern across multiple events and gatherings. The alleged act is one of both betrayal and strategy, a breach that turns the very concept of family trust upside down. William's decision to go public with these claims marks a turning point. For years, whispers circulated among palace staff and advisors about unusual behaviors. Some shrugged it off as misunderstandings. Others quietly noted inconsistencies, strange timing, and instances where Meghan appeared unusually well-informed about matters that should have remained private. Alone, each incident could have been dismissed, but William alleges that, over time, the pattern became undeniable. Hidden recordings, intentional surveillance, and breaches of confidence weren't anomalies. They were deliberate. The gravity of the claim is compounded by the nature of the family. In any household, trust is essential. In a royal household, it is sacred. Every private discussion carries implications beyond the individuals present: diplomatic considerations, public perception, and the integrity of the monarchy itself. William's alleged revelation, therefore, isn't just a personal grievance, it is a matter with far-reaching consequences for the institution he is preparing to inherit. It is, according to insiders, a statement meant to protect the family while exposing actions that could undermine it. William reportedly began by confronting Meghan privately. Sources suggest he attempted to address what he observed discreetly, giving her an opportunity to explain, to clarify, or to rectify the situation. But the accounts indicate that the responses were, at best, evasive, at worst, dismissive. What began as a private concern escalated into a matter requiring a formal statement. And when private resolution failed, William's decision to make his claims public became both a defensive and strategic act. The alleged recordings, William asserts, were not casual or accidental. They were systematic and meticulous, designed to capture the family's private moments without detection. The devices were reportedly small, easily concealed, and capable of recording audio and potentially video. William's revelation is that these were used not for personal record-keeping or nostalgia, but for leverage and alleged attempt to influence, manipulate, or control dynamics within the family. The stakes, in other words, were enormous. And consider the psychological weight of this revelation. William, who has long shouldered the burden of leadership and responsibility, now faced the added emotional strain of betrayal. To know that someone you trusted, someone integrated into your inner circle, may have been watching and listening in secret is devastating. Insiders describe William as feeling both protective and angry, determined to shield the family from further intrusion while exposing the alleged misconduct. This duality, protection and disclosure, is central to understanding the intensity of his claims. For Harry, the impact is equally profound. The alleged recordings, if accurate, may have captured intimate discussions between the brothers, private plans, and sensitive family matters. The very conversations that are meant to bind siblings together could have been compromised. The emotional and relational stakes are staggering. Trust, once fractured, is difficult to repair, especially in a family constantly under the public eye. And yet, the allegations go beyond emotional betrayal. In the UK, secretly recording private conversations is a serious matter. Surveillance laws exist to protect citizens from unauthorized intrusion, and the royal family, despite its unique status, is not immune to these legal frameworks. William's revelation, therefore, carries potential legal implications alongside the personal and familial ones. According to insiders, the palace has begun consulting legal advisors to assess the scope of any violations and to determine potential consequences. The combination of personal betrayal and legal exposure amplifies the gravity of this situation exponentially. William's revelation also provides context for the ongoing tensions between him and Harry. While much of the public focus has been on disputes over public statements, media interactions, and differing visions of royal duties, the alleged recordings add a layer of complexity. Trust between the brothers, already tested by public scrutiny, is now framed against the possibility of surveillance. Every decision, every discussion is potentially influenced by the knowledge or suspicion that private conversations could have been captured. But there is more. Insiders claim that the alleged recordings weren't limited to casual family discussions. Williams suggests that strategic decisions, private reflections, and confidential advice given by senior family members were all potentially documented. This is where the stakes escalate from personal betrayal to institutional threat. In a monarchy, the integrity of decision-making, the confidentiality of counsel, and the security of sensitive discussions are foundational. To have those moments allegedly recorded without consent is to introduce an unprecedented vulnerability into the heart of the family. Public reaction, of course, has been mixed. Social media, pundits, and royal commentators debate the veracity, motive, and implications of William's claims. Some see it as a justified warning, a necessary step to protect the family. Others frame it as a public airing of grievances, a strategic move to undermine Meghan's position. But beneath the public discourse lies a deeper narrative, one of trust violated, of intimate moments compromised, and of a family grappling with the intersection of personal relationships and public scrutiny. And yet, as dramatic as the revelation is, William's claims hint at more than just hidden devices. Sources close to him suggest that he possesses knowledge of specific incidents, events, and conversations that allegedly demonstrate a deliberate pattern of surveillance. The details are being withheld from public disclosure for legal and strategic reasons, but the implication is clear. This is not a one-off occurrence, but a sustained, intentional effort that spans multiple events, gatherings, and moments of intimacy. The human element cannot be overstated. Family members, according to insiders, have reportedly been shaken, hurt, and unsure of how to navigate interactions with someone they now suspect may have been observing them in private. The emotional toll, combined with public scrutiny, creates an environment fraught with tension, suspicion, and anxiety. William's decision to reveal the alleged surveillance is in part a bid to restore clarity and reassert boundaries that may have been violated repeatedly. And here's where the tension escalates further. The alleged recordings are said to contain moments of vulnerability, confessions, reflections, and strategies shared in confidence. The exposure of such material could have profound effects on relationships, public perception, and the narrative surrounding Meghan and Harry. It's a delicate balance, revealing wrongdoing, protecting the family, and managing public perception in a world where every leak, every rumor, and every statement is magnified. But William's revelation isn't just about what may have been recorded. It's about accountability. By speaking out, he signals that boundaries exist even in the most privileged environments, that trust is not optional, and that actions have consequences. It's a message not just to Meghan, not just to Harry, but to anyone who believes that proximity to power exempts them from responsibility. The act of disclosure is both protective and corrective, aimed at preserving the integrity of the family while exposing alleged breaches that cannot be ignored. As we move forward in this story, the chapters ahead will delve into the specifics, the devices allegedly used, the conversations captured, and the reactions of those within the palace. We will examine the legal implications, the psychological impact, and the strategic dimensions of William's revelation. And we will explore the emotional fallout, the hurt, the betrayal, and the struggle to maintain cohesion in a family under siege. Because the truth, as William presents it, is more than a scandal. It is a narrative of power, trust, and the human consequences of surveillance within one of the world's most famous families. And as the evidence, stories, and reactions unfold, one question looms ever larger. If the allegations are true, what will it take to rebuild the trust that has been shattered? Tiny, insidious, invisible. The devices William alleges Meghan Markle used were nothing short of technological stealth weapons, tools designed to capture private moments without detection. And if true, they are at the heart of a scandal that turns the very concept of trust inside the royal family upside down. Picture this: a quiet room in Kensington Palace, conversations about family decisions, plans for engagements, even private concerns about media coverage. Everyone assumes they are speaking behind closed doors, shielded from the outside world. Sources close to William described the devices as incredibly discreet: microphones small enough to hide in pens, cameras concealed within lamps, recorders embedded in everyday objects, items that blend seamlessly into the environment, raising the question, how many times did a seemingly ordinary object hold an uninvited witness? The devices are said to be precise, capturing audio and potentially video without anyone realizing. Every nuance, every inflection, every hesitation could be preserved for later use. The technical sophistication of these alleged devices cannot be understated. Experts familiar with espionage techniques describe them as spy-level quality, capable of operating for hours without detection, recording high-fidelity audio, and sometimes transmitting data remotely. In a normal household, such equipment might be considered excessive, even paranoid. In the royal household, it is unprecedented. William's claims suggest that the devices were not merely experimental or incidental. They were deliberate, deployed with intent, and placed strategically to capture maximum information. But the story isn't just about technology, it's about human behavior. To place such devices requires planning, awareness, and subtlety. According to insiders, the alleged devices were positioned in locations where private discussions were most likely to occur: offices, drawing rooms, even areas thought to be secluded. Each device represents a calculated intrusion into spaces that were presumed safe, turning ordinary conversations into potential vulnerabilities. The psychology behind it is striking. What does it say about a person who feels the need to observe, to capture, to document intimate moments in secret? William's revelations hint at a mindset where control and knowledge are prioritized over trust and transparency. The emotional implications for the royal family are profound. Imagine knowing that every strategy discussion, every private complaint, every vulnerable reflection could be on tape. Staff members reportedly began to feel unease, becoming hyper-aware of what they said and how they acted. The environment inside the palace, already governed by strict protocol, may have been further complicated by the fear that even trusted spaces were compromised. William, observing this, reportedly felt a combination of anger, protectiveness, and disbelief. To him, the devices were not simply technical tools, they were symbols of betrayal. The alleged devices also carry a legal dimension. In the UK, recording private conversations without consent is a serious breach of privacy laws, and the potential use of hidden recording equipment to capture confidential discussions could constitute a criminal offense. The implication, according to William, is not only personal but institutional. If such practices were discovered and substantiated, they could trigger legal inquiries that extend beyond family matters, affecting advisors, staff, and possibly the broader perception of the monarchy. And yet, despite the technical sophistication, the devices reportedly left traces. According to sources, it was through subtle inconsistencies, inadvertent mistakes, and the occasional discovery of unusual objects that William and his team began to suspect something was amiss. A misplaced pen, a strange cable, a lamp that seemed out of place. Small details that, taken together, painted a troubling picture of systematic surveillance. The realization that these tiny objects could hold vast amounts of sensitive information intensified the sense of betrayal. The alleged recordings reportedly captured not only private discussions, but moments of vulnerability, emotional disclosures, sensitive family dynamics, and even personal insecurities may have been recorded, creating a psychological power imbalance. William's concern, sources say, is that such recordings could be leveraged strategically to manipulate, to influence, or to control narratives within the family. The alleged devices, in other words, are not passive instruments. They are active agents of potential conflict. Public perception adds another layer to the tension. The royal family is constantly under scrutiny, yet the idea that surveillance could occur internally, without public knowledge, introduces a new dimension to the scandal. William's revelation, according to insiders, is aimed at asserting transparency and control, to acknowledge the devices, expose the breach, and re-establish boundaries within the family. It's a delicate balance, attempting to protect both the family's integrity and the institution's reputation while confronting what is alleged to be a profound violation of trust. The emotional stakes extend to the human relationships involved. Harry, who has had a complicated relationship with both William and Meghan, reportedly faced added tension upon learning about the alleged devices. Conversations meant to reinforce brotherly trust may have been compromised. Every private exchange between siblings, every strategic discussion about public roles could have been captured, stored, or potentially used to influence decisions. The psychological burden, insiders say, has been immense. The knowledge that private words could be monitored creates uncertainty, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of vulnerability. And then there's the question of motive. Why would someone introduce such devices into a family setting? According to William, the implication is clear: influence, control, and strategic advantage. The devices were not intended to simply observe. They were intended to collect information that could be used to assert power. The act itself transforms an ordinary family conflict into a complex web of psychological, strategic, and ethical dilemmas. But perhaps the most chilling element is the sheer audacity. The royal family, accustomed to media attention and public scrutiny, is no stranger to observation. Cameras outside palace walls, paparazzi, and global media coverage are part of life. Yet the alleged recordings, hidden within the family's own private spaces, represent a violation far more intimate and disturbing. According to William, these devices crossed a line that no outsider could have crossed legally or ethically, making it a deeply personal breach. The palace reportedly began taking steps to assess the scope of the alleged surveillance. Security experts, technical advisors, and legal teams were consulted to identify devices, evaluate potential data breaches, and understand the possible ramifications. The process was painstaking, deliberate, and confidential, aimed at protecting the family while determining the best course of action. William, sources say, was deeply involved, balancing concern for privacy with the need to confront the alleged misconduct. As the story unfolds, the devices become more than just objects. They are symbols of a fractured trust. Each microphone, camera, or recorder represents a moment when intimacy was allegedly violated, when the boundaries of family loyalty were tested. The psychological and emotional weight of this revelation is immense, affecting not only William and Harry, but the entire family structure. And yet, despite the seriousness, there is an element of strategy in William's disclosure. By revealing the devices publicly, he sends a clear message: boundaries exist, trust must be respected, and violations have consequences. It is both a warning and a protective measure, aimed at ensuring that the family can rebuild a sense of security and integrity while confronting what is alleged to be a profound breach. The next chapters will delve into the conversations allegedly captured, the psychological fallout, and the legal ramifications that extend far beyond the palace walls. The devices, small as they may be, have created ripples that threaten to upend relationships, challenge institutional norms, and expose vulnerabilities previously hidden from public view. Because in a family where every word counts, where trust is paramount, and where privacy is rare, the introduction of hidden recording devices is more than a scandal. It is a seismic shift in the dynamics of power, loyalty, and human relationships. Imagine speaking freely, believing that the room you are in is secure, that every word you utter is protected by trust, by protocol, by the unspoken rules of family. Now imagine discovering, years later, that every intimate thought, every strategy discussion, every whispered confession may have been captured without your consent. This is the chilling allegation that Prince William has leveled against Meghan Markle, that private conversations within the royal family were secretly recorded, moments intended to remain behind closed doors now potentially preserved on hidden devices. The first realization, according to insiders, came gradually. At first, it was subtle, a phrase repeated that seemed too informed, a question answered before it was publicly discussed, knowledge of a conversation that had never left the room. On its own, each incident might have been dismissed as coincidence or misunderstanding. But over time, patterns emerged, suggesting that private words were not staying private. William, reportedly meticulous in his observations, began connecting the dots, and the picture that emerged was alarming. The alleged recordings, he claims, were extensive. Conversations between the brothers, discussions with senior advisors, even private talks with Queen Elizabeth and other family members. All were allegedly subject to capture. The content reportedly spanned the mundane to the highly sensitive, planning events, discussing charitable initiatives, weighing public statements, and confiding personal worries. For a family so under constant scrutiny, the thought that even private moments were recorded introduces a new, deeply unsettling dimension to their lives. William's account emphasizes the emotional betrayal inherent in these recordings. In a family, conversations are currency. They build bonds, establish trust, and allow for vulnerability. The knowledge that such moments could have been documented by someone within the family transforms intimacy into a minefield. What once was safe becomes suspect. What once fostered closeness now risks exploitation. Sources close to William describe him as deeply hurt, not only because of the violation itself, but because of what it signifies, a fundamental breach of trust that undermines the foundation of family relationships. Some of the conversations reportedly captured are said to reveal private discussions about the monarchy itself, how to handle media scrutiny, how to approach international engagements, how to respond to political issues. All were allegedly recorded. The stakes here are immense. Conversations about public life, diplomacy, and royal strategy, if ever exposed, could not only embarrass individuals but also compromise the institution. William's revelation underscores the dual threat of these alleged recordings: personal betrayal and institutional risk. There are also reported conversations of a deeply personal nature. William claims that Meghan's alleged devices may have captured emotional exchanges between family members, confessions, worries, insecurities, and reflections meant only for the ears of loved ones. For a family under the relentless eye of the public, private emotional moments are rare treasures. To have those moments recorded covertly, insiders say, is a violation not just of protocol, but of human dignity. Staff members who are sworn to confidentiality reportedly began noticing subtle anomalies that hinted at recordings: items moved or misplaced, technology behaving strangely, or unusual reactions from Meghan after discussions that should have been private. All became pieces of a growing puzzle. The cumulative effect was a climate of suspicion and unease. Employees who had once operated with full trust found themselves second-guessing every interaction, every instruction, every casual conversation. The palace, for all its formality and decorum, reportedly became a space where even small moments were fraught with tension. William's public revelation, then, is not just a matter of exposing technical infractions, it is an act of protecting the emotional integrity of the family. By speaking out, he signals that certain behaviors are unacceptable, that trust must be respected, and that breaches of privacy have consequences. It is a message meant both for Meghan and for anyone else within the family's orbit. Boundaries exist, and violating them is intolerable. The alleged recordings also introduce a unique psychological dimension. According to sources, knowing that words may have been captured alters behavior profoundly. Conversations that might have been candid become cautious. Emotions are filtered, strategies carefully worded. The very act of speaking becomes an exercise in risk management. William's concern, insiders claim, is that this kind of surveillance, if accurate, changes the nature of family interaction, introducing fear and suspicion where there should be trust. There is also the matter of potential leverage. Williams' sources suggest that the alleged recordings were not merely passive. They could have been used strategically, influencing relationships, decisions, and public perception. Imagine having an intimate conversation with a sibling, only to later find that your words may have been stored and could be interpreted, misrepresented, or used to exert influence. The power dynamic shifts dramatically when private words can be weaponized. Public scrutiny adds another layer to the tension. The royal family is accustomed to being observed by the media, to facing criticism, and to operating under a global spotlight. But the idea that surveillance could exist internally, within the sanctity of the family's private spaces, introduces a chilling new dimension. William's revelation, therefore, is as much about reclaiming control as it is about exposing wrongdoing. By highlighting the alleged recordings, he asserts boundaries, demands accountability, and signals a need to restore the integrity of private spaces. Psychologically, the alleged recordings are devastating because they disrupt the implicit social contract that governs intimate spaces. The family, advisors, and staff operate on mutual trust. Even in high-pressure environments, there is an understanding that certain conversations are off-limits to recording or disclosure. If that understanding is broken, insiders say the entire environment becomes fraught with anxiety. Every exchange, no matter how casual, carries the weight of potential exposure. The alleged impact on Harry is also significant. Private discussions between brothers, the kind that reinforce loyalty, trust, and shared purpose, may have been compromised. According to William, even discussions about sensitive family matters, such as the handling of public statements, charitable priorities, or personal challenges, could have been recorded. The potential for misinterpretation, manipulation, or public exposure heightens the emotional stakes. Williams' account emphasizes that the alleged recordings were not indiscriminate. They were carefully targeted, capturing moments of greatest significance. Conversations with senior advisors, private moments with the Queen, strategic family discussions, all were allegedly recorded with precision. This implies a level of planning and intentionality that transforms the narrative from casual surveillance to a calculated strategy designed to gather leverage, influence, and insight. The emotional consequences are immense. Families rely on private conversations to process decisions, vent frustrations, and seek guidance. If those moments are recorded without consent, insiders suggest, the very fabric of familial interaction is undermined. Trust erodes. Bonds weaken. Relationships, already under the pressures of public life, risk becoming transactional rather than authentic. William's revelation, therefore, is both a personal and institutional alarm bell. Private conversations are sacred, and violating that sanctity is intolerable. And yet, the story continues to unfold. According to William, the alleged recordings were not limited to a single device or moment. They represent a pattern, a sustained intrusion into spaces and moments that were presumed secure. Each conversation captured adds to the weight of the allegation, reinforcing the narrative that privacy was systematically compromised. As the chapter closes, one question looms. If the conversations were recorded, what exactly do they reveal? Sensitive discussions, personal vulnerabilities, or strategic decisions? How might these recordings have influenced relationships within the family, decisions made behind closed doors, or the perception of the monarchy itself? The answers, insiders say, are as explosive as the revelation of the devices themselves. The allegations made by Prince William carry implications that extend far beyond the walls of the palace. On the surface, it is a story of family betrayal, of trust violated, of intimate conversations allegedly captured by hidden recording devices. But underneath, there is a legal dimension that cannot be ignored. In the United Kingdom, secretly recording private conversations without consent is not only a breach of etiquette or morality, it can be a criminal offense. And according to insiders, William's revelation has opened the door to a potential storm of legal scrutiny. Imagine a family that has always prided itself on discretion, privacy, and adherence to protocol, suddenly facing the reality that internal surveillance may have crossed a line of legality. The monarchy, despite its unique status and historical privileges, is not immune to the principles enshrined in law. The alleged actions attributed to Meghan Markle, if substantiated, could trigger investigations into violations of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, the Data Protection Act, and other UK privacy laws. These are not abstract statutes. They are enforceable rules designed to protect individuals from unauthorized surveillance, safeguarding both personal and professional communications. Legal experts consulted by palace insiders reportedly described the potential ramifications as significant. Unauthorized recording of private conversations can lead to civil lawsuits, criminal charges, and financial penalties. Moreover, if such recordings were ever made public or shared beyond the intended audience, the legal consequences could escalate further, potentially involving defamation, misuse of private information, and breaches of confidentiality agreements. For the royal family, whose public and private lives are intertwined, the exposure of such material carries both personal and institutional risk. The palace reportedly moved quickly to assess the situation once the allegations surfaced. Security consultants, technical experts, and legal advisors were brought in to determine the scope of any potential breach, identify devices, and evaluate whether any laws may have been violated. William, sources say, was closely involved, balancing the emotional urgency of a betrayal within the family with the strategic need to understand the legal landscape. The concern, insiders explain, is not merely punitive, it is protective. By understanding the legal parameters, the family can safeguard itself, address potential violations, and prevent further exposure. The legal storm is complicated by the nature of the evidence. Hidden recording devices, if discovered, may contain audio, video, or other data that could be interpreted in multiple ways. The content of these recordings, according to sources, is highly sensitive, ranging from personal reflections to strategic family discussions. The legal question becomes not just whether recording occurred, but how that recording may have been used, stored, or distributed. Misuse of such material could amplify the legal risk exponentially, particularly if the recordings were shared outside the family or leveraged for personal or political gain. Moreover, the alleged recordings create a complex interplay between privacy rights and public interest. The royal family occupies a unique position balancing transparency with confidentiality. While members are public figures, their private conversations and family matters remain legally protected under standard privacy laws. The introduction of hidden recording devices, as alleged by William, raises questions about where the boundary lies between legitimate scrutiny and illegal surveillance. Legal scholars consulted by insiders reportedly describe this as a gray area with potentially far-reaching consequences. Public perception adds another layer to the legal tension. In today's digital age, even the suggestion that private conversations have been secretly recorded can lead to intense scrutiny, media investigation, and public debate. For the monarchy, which operates under constant observation, the reputational stakes are immense. Legal challenges, lawsuits, and potential criminal inquiries are not just matters of compliance, they are matters of public trust and the preservation of institutional integrity. William's decision to reveal these allegations publicly, according to insiders, is therefore both a defensive and strategic maneuver, signaling that boundaries were allegedly crossed and that the family intends to address the matter proactively. The emotional dimension of the legal storm is also significant. Knowing that private conversations may have been captured, stored, or potentially used in ways that violate UK law introduces a sense of vulnerability, not just for William, but for the entire family. According to sources, advisors, staff, and other family members have expressed concern about the potential fallout, both legally and personally. Trust is fragile, and in a high-stakes environment where public exposure can have profound consequences, even the suggestion of legal vulnerability can create tension, anxiety, and uncertainty. Adding to the complexity is the potential involvement of external parties. Should recordings exist, there is always the possibility that they could be leaked, sold, or otherwise disseminated. The legal implications of such dissemination are severe, potentially involving criminal liability for both the act of recording and the act of distribution. The palace reportedly monitors these risks carefully, understanding that once sensitive information leaves private spaces, control over it becomes almost impossible. William's revelation then can be seen as an attempt to take control of the narrative, preempting unauthorized exposure while signaling the seriousness of the alleged misconduct. The alleged recordings also intersect with broader questions of ethical responsibility. Legal frameworks exist to protect individuals, but they also reinforce social norms. boundaries of trust, consent, and accountability. In a family where loyalty and discretion are paramount, the alleged breach is not merely technical, it is deeply ethical. William's disclosure highlights the tension between personal behavior, family ethics, and the letter of the law, raising questions about accountability at every level. Insiders emphasize that the legal ramifications are not purely hypothetical. Experts reportedly advise that even the suspicion of unauthorized recording can necessitate careful internal review, formal documentation, and consultation with regulators or legal authorities. For the royal family, which must navigate centuries of tradition alongside contemporary legal frameworks, this represents an unprecedented challenge. The alleged surveillance, if true, forces a reckoning. How does a centuries-old institution adapt to modern legal standards while maintaining its integrity and protecting its members? William's revelation also underscores the strategic dimension of legal awareness. By bringing the alleged recordings to light, he positions himself as both protector and enforcer of family boundaries. He is signaling to Meghan, to Harry, and to advisors that violations of trust, especially those that may breach legal standards, will not be tolerated. It is a calculated move designed to preserve the family's reputation, assert boundaries, and mitigate potential harm. The broader consequences are equally profound. Legal exposure could affect not only personal relationships, but also public perception of the monarchy. Lawsuits, investigations, or even public hearings would attract global attention, potentially undermining confidence in the institution. William's preemptive revelation, insiders claim, is intended to control the damage, framing the narrative before external forces shape it in ways that could be far more harmful. And yet, despite the seriousness of the legal implications, the revelation also highlights a human story, the intersection of trust, privacy, and accountability. Family dynamics are complicated. Relationships are fraught with emotion, expectation, and history. Introducing the possibility of legal violation into this mix transforms personal betrayal into institutional crisis. William's revelation therefore operates on multiple levels. It is personal, protective, strategic, and legal, all at once. According to sources, the palace has been quietly taking measures to evaluate the scope of the alleged surveillance. Legal experts, security consultants, and technical advisors have reportedly been engaged to identify potential breaches, assess risks, and determine steps necessary to mitigate consequences. The goal is twofold: protect the family while preserving the institution. The stakes could not be higher. And as the chapter draws to a close, one question dominates. If these recordings exist, and if they were indeed unauthorized, what legal consequences might follow? Could criminal investigations be launched? Could civil lawsuits be filed? How will public perception influence the monarchy's response? And more importantly, what does this mean for trust within a family where loyalty has always been paramount? The allegations regarding hidden recordings, while explosive in their own right, do not exist in a vacuum. To fully understand the gravity of William's claims, it is necessary to examine Meghan Markle's past, her integration into the royal family, and the behaviors that, according to insiders, suggest a potential pattern of secrecy and strategic maneuvering. From the very beginning, Meghan's life has been shaped by public attention, media scrutiny, and personal ambition. A former actress accustomed to navigating the spotlight, she understood early on how to manage perception, craft narratives, and influence opinion. But according to sources within the palace, once she entered the royal family, these skills allegedly took on a new dimension. One that insiders now say included extraordinary levels of secrecy and control. Consider the early years of Meghan's relationship with Prince Harry. Observers noted that she maintained a highly curated public persona, sharing selective personal details while keeping vast portions of her private life carefully guarded. According to palace insiders, her approach to privacy was meticulous, but also calculated. Every appearance, every interview, and even casual social media posts were reviewed, approved, and designed to project a controlled image. In a sense, her entire public life became a controlled narrative, one carefully aligned with strategic objectives rather than organic storytelling. Within the palace, sources suggest that Meghan's approach to secrecy extended beyond the public gaze. Staff, aides, and even family members reportedly observed behaviors that hinted at an unusually high concern for monitoring and control. Meetings were sometimes held with minimal staff present, certain discussions were closely guarded, and moments that were meant to be casual and informal were treated with extraordinary discretion. To many observers, these behaviors were simply a reflection of someone acclimating to an institution steeped in tradition and protocol. But when combined with William's allegations regarding hidden recording devices, a pattern emerges that raises questions about intent and strategy. Insiders recount previous incidents that, in retrospect, may have signaled an inclination towards secrecy. unexplained awareness of private conversations, a tendency to question the decisions of staff with an unusual level of precision, and a knack for gaining information through indirect channels all contributed to an environment of subtle tension. While none of these incidents alone constitute wrongdoing, Williams' claims suggest that they may have been part of a broader pattern, one that included the alleged use of covert surveillance to gather information. The psychology of secrecy, according to experts consulted by insiders, is complex. Individuals who operate in highly visible, high-pressure environments often develop mechanisms to maintain control over their surroundings. For Meghan, according to sources, this may have included strategic discretion, selective disclosure, and allegedly, the use of technology to capture private moments. The intent, insiders say, would not merely be curiosity. It would be an effort to gain leverage, influence, and agency in a world where power is closely guarded and highly consequential. Williams' concerns reportedly intensified as he began connecting historical behaviors with the alleged recordings. The realization, according to sources, was that this was not a one-off lapse in judgment, but a sustained approach to controlling the flow of information within the family. Some of the most revealing accounts of Meghan's alleged pattern of secrecy involve interactions with staff. Palace employees reportedly observed a combination of charm, persuasion, and strategic withholding of information. Tasks and assignments were sometimes reframed, instructions carefully measured, and sensitive topics broached with subtle precision. While these behaviors could be interpreted as professionalism or adaptation to royal protocol, insiders now suggest they may have been consistent with a pattern of surveillance-driven awareness, an approach that ensured that Meghan remained informed of conversations and decisions, even when not directly involved. Furthermore, Meghan's past media engagements provide additional context. Interviews, memoirs, and public statements often included selective disclosures, highlighting certain aspects of her experience while omitting others. Critics within the palace reportedly viewed these choices with suspicion, suggesting that she may have been curating information to shape perception, influence narratives, and maintain strategic advantage. Williams' allegations regarding hidden recording devices, if accurate, could be seen as an extension of this same approach, using technology to collect information discreetly while controlling what is revealed publicly. The emotional dimension of this alleged pattern is significant. Trust, once compromised, creates cascading effects. William, for instance, reportedly experienced a profound sense of betrayal as he connected historical behaviors with the possibility of surveillance. Conversations, decisions, and even moments of vulnerability within the family were now potentially tainted by doubt. Staff members similarly faced a psychological strain, unsure of how to interact, what to disclose, or how to navigate private discussions. The alleged pattern of secrecy transformed ordinary interactions into exercises in caution and self-protection. Another aspect highlighted by insiders involved strategic alliances within the palace. Meghan's ability to cultivate relationships with key advisors, staff members, and influential figures reportedly played a role in her alleged pattern of secrecy. By maintaining selective communication, controlling information flow, and allegedly capturing private moments, she may have sought to ensure that she remained informed, protected, and empowered. In a hierarchical institution where information is power, such behavior, if true, would constitute a deliberate effort to position oneself advantageously. It is also worth noting that this alleged pattern of secrecy may have extended beyond the palace. Williams' sources suggest that interactions with external parties, including media consultants, legal advisors, and personal contacts, were carefully orchestrated to protect information while advancing personal narratives. The combination of controlled public appearances, curated disclosures, and alleged private surveillance paints a picture of a highly strategic approach to information management. While these behaviors may have been framed as precautionary or protective, Williams' allegations cast them in a far more concerning light. The interplay between public image and private action is particularly relevant here. Meghan's public persona, confident, articulate, and controlled, may have masked complex internal dynamics within the family. Williams' allegations suggest that behind the polished public image lies a history of behaviors aimed at managing, monitoring, and influencing the flow of information. From a psychological perspective, this represents a sophisticated, calculated approach to navigating a high-pressure environment, one that insiders now claim may have included the use of hidden recording devices as a tool of influence. The alleged pattern also intersects with broader questions of trust, loyalty, and ethics. In a family where discretion is paramount, the introduction of surveillance, even for strategic purposes, represents a profound violation. William, according to sources, was particularly concerned about the ethical implications. Recording conversations without consent undermines relationships, erodes confidence, and introduces tension that can have long-term consequences for familial cohesion. The alleged pattern of secrecy, therefore, is not simply a matter of curiosity or minor infractions. It is, insiders argue, a significant breach of ethical and relational norms. Public scrutiny amplifies the stakes. The royal family operates under constant media attention, and the revelation of a pattern of secrecy, combined with the alleged recordings, creates an environment ripe for speculation, analysis, and judgment. William's disclosure in highlighting the potential pattern serves multiple purposes: protecting the family from further compromise, framing the narrative proactively, and signaling to Meghan and others within the family that certain behaviors are unacceptable. Ultimately, this chapter illustrates that William's concerns about hidden recordings do not exist in isolation. They are part of a broader context, a history of strategic secrecy, careful information management, and selective disclosure. Insiders suggest that the pattern is consistent, deliberate, and emotionally significant, creating an environment where trust is tested, relationships are strained, and the integrity of the family is challenged. And as this pattern unfolds, one chilling question emerges. If such behaviors were indeed systematic, what other actions might have gone unnoticed? What conversations, decisions, or moments of vulnerability might have been captured, preserved, and potentially used to influence the course of family dynamics? Because in a family where every word carries weight, every decision has consequences, and every relationship is scrutinized,